Good morning, Javatarians. Today we're going to talk about the concept of a loop, which is really just a piece of code that repeats over and over again. It's essentially an if statement that repeats for as long as the statement inside the parentheses is true, and that statement is called the condition. So here's a while loop. It has three parts. An initialization. We're going to have some variable that has some initial value. Right? And then there's a condition. In this case, the counter less than 5. So what's going to happen is this piece of code is going to operate for as long as this condition is true. So while the counter is less than 5, execute the bit of code that comes in between the braces. So let's run this and see what we mean. Compile. And when we run the loop, we get 5 statements. So initially, the counter is equal to 0. So the statement counter less than 5 is true since 0 is less than 5. So it's going to print out counter equals and the value of counter. That's that first line right there. The counter is equal to 0. Right. The next statement inside the loop increments the counter. So in this case, we add 1. We hit the bottom of the loop. We come back up. We check to see, is the counter still less than 5? Well, it's got a value of 1, so it's still true. So we go back in and execute the code again. We print counter equals, and the value of counter is 1. And so it prints again, this time with the value of 1. The other line says incremented by 1, so counter gets the value of 2. We hit the bottom of the loop, we go back up, we check it, it's still less than 5, so we do the same thing over and over and over again. Right. Counter equals 2, we add 1, we get the statement counter equals 3, we add 1, we get the statement counter equals 4, because 4 is still less than 5, and that's that statement here, counter equals 4. Now, however, when we add 1, the value for counter is 5. We hit the bottom of the loop, so when we come back up, this statement is no longer true. 5 is not less than 5, so the loop is done. So Java knows that that brace marks the end of the loop, so it goes then and executes whatever code comes after that loop. In this case, we just put a statement in to show that the loop has stopped. And so this really works like an if statement, but it just keeps on operating for as long as it's true that the counter is less than 5. So for the values 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, this code will execute. When we hit 5, we have to stop, and that's shown by this code down here. One very important part is the increment. As it says here, we must increment the counter